don't want to get stampeded.
We have to get back online now. Not back up yet.
Okay, we'll have to wait until we...
I thought they all went to Captain Parker's.
Did you bring us anything back here? Figured you guys went out for chowder or something, right?
Thank you.
Recording in progress.
All right, welcome everybody. We are moving back into open session for Yarmouth Conservation Commission. Again, this is the Yarmouth Conservation Commission meeting for Thursday, March 20th, 2025. Our first order of business in open session is request for determination of applicability for Kevin and Bonnie Menzolini, 40 Grandview Drive, proposed garage and driveway expansion and riverfront area, land subject to coastal storm flowage and the buffer zone to a coastal bank. Lynn.
Good evening. Lynn Hamlin representing the applicant. This project's fairly straightforward. It's to raise and replace an existing garage on a residential property. The resource areas are a buffer zone to a coastal bank. The coastal bank is both armored and bulkheaded and vegetated. It's also located within land subject to coastal storm flowage. The existing garage is located 83 feet away from the top of bank. The expansion will increase the footprint by 174 square feet. So accordingly, both under your buffer zone regs, because we do not enjoy a 50-foot undisturbed buffer, and because we're working in a riverfront, which will require 2-to-1 mitigation, that we've shown 348 square feet of mitigation along the, right there, along the edge of the lawn most adjacent to the bank, which will increase the buffer there. Brittany said you'd like at least 3 species of native vegetation, so we've done that. Plus, I like to use some, I threw in some Dyspepsia, just because I think it's nice mixed in with the bearberry. All the work will occur within existing landscape disturbed, its patios and landscaping and managed lawn, so there will be no impact to either the bank, the riverfront, or the flood zone. And I have a 6-page narrative that I won't read to you, but if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Thanks, Lynn. Questions from the board? No question?
Nope.
Brittany, anything?
No problems with the project that is proposed. I spoke with Lynn briefly that the previous owner had some expansions of the walkway and patio, and we are past the statute to enforce on those. So the problem as the project as proposed is fine, but just it'll be noted in the minutes that the unpermitted expansion will remain unpermitted. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody in the audience have any comments, questions on this one? Anybody on Zoom, raise your hand digitally. I don't see any. Unless there's any further discussion among the board, would somebody like to make a motion for a -2 and 3?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Right there, and then pass it on down.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thanks, Lynn. All right, next order of business is a continued notice of intent for SE 83-2461, Environmental Consulting and Restoration LLC for Brian and Patricia Clifford, 36 Bent Bluffs Lane, proposed addition in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. There is I think there's supposed to be a request here, but I don't see it. From the applicant's consultant asking for a continuance to April 3rd, 2025. Do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously.
It's on the screen if you need to see it.
Thank you.
Who made the motion and?
Let's see who did it. Pat and Bradford.
Thank you.
All right, next order of business is another continued notice of intent for SE 83-2463, Rosangela Coliero, 59 Oyster Cove Road, easement, proposed construction of a dock facility in a coastal bank, coastal beach, salt marsh, land containing shellfish, land under the ocean, land subject to coastal storm flowage, and riverfront area.
Chairman, I'd like to recuse myself from this.
Okay, let the record reflect that Commissioner Mulhern is recusing herself from this testimony.
And
Should I abstain from these because?
You can actually hear this one only because there was no testimony opened up before, so, okay. All right, so I just need to let everybody know that we are going to be hearing this hearing under a bylaw-only review. We had every intention to hear this under the state performance standards, the State Wetlands Protection Act, but that was taken out of our hands by a request for a superseding order that was filed by Attorney Wall on behalf of the applicant. So we will only be listening to testimony that relates to the town bylaw, wetland bylaw. There is nobody here. Bob, are you?
Mr. Chairman, full disclosure, my name's Bob Perry. I'm
can you
the
go to
civil
the
engineer.
microphone?
I'm the civil engineer on the job, but I am unauthorized to provide any representation for this applicant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bob. So there is nobody here for this, or no applicant representative for this hearing. I think what the easiest thing for us to do is just, Brittany, if you would just give us a quick, brief synopsis of what they're looking to do and any variances they are requiring. We can make any questions to you of that and go from there.
The application that was submitted is for a proposed dock in the Bass River with a float and a ramp. They're requesting 5 total variances for this dock. The first one is there's a float limit. The float limit has already been reached because there's already an existing dock on this parcel to the south, and that's 3.01, Section 13. The proposed dock is not at the center of the lot, 3.01, Section 7, and within 25 feet of the property boundary without permission from the abutting property owner, 3.01, 12D. The float depth at mean low water is 1.5 feet, which is less than the required 3 feet. In section 3.01.11, and it is lastly 48 feet from the existing dock to the south instead of the required 75 feet. We do have a list of abutter opposition that we can run through. We've received, we have abutter opposition from the property owners at address 35, 43, 51, and 55, and as well as the owner of the parcel that the dock is proposed on at 59 Oyster Cove Road. A lot of the oppositions are similar in the fact that they are easement owners, and they all believe that their rights would, their deeded rights would be infringed upon by the proposed dock. If you'd like me to read them all, I can, but I think that sums them up.
I think we get the gist on that one, though.
And just to be clear, these oppositions, the Conservation Commission decisions are made solely under the Wetlands Protection Act, and in this case, just the Yarmouth Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Any vote doesn't suggest compliance with other laws such as easements and deeded right access, which fall solely under the Land Court. The comments from all of these abutters show that that's clearly an issue at this site, but it does remain outside the purview of this board.
Okay, so I couldn't have said that any better than that.
The blurb.
Any questions from the board? Again, five variances is what they're seeking. Brittany, any other comments, questions, concerns?
No?
All right, is there anybody in the audience who would like to have to say anything about this? Any questions on this one? If you would, come on up to the microphone. Either one is fine. Just make sure you state your name for the record.
Yeah, so Mark Ayotte, 59 Oyster Cove Road, representing my parents and such who are in Florida right now. So the 5 variances of those, particularly the 48-foot, really affects our dock, because ours is the dock next door to it on the parcel itself. And I would also say that the access to the water, which we would like to restore, which this current dock, which you guys already put an enforcement order on, which I'm not sure why the enforcement order isn't being enforced so that we can further restore the rights of the easement holders to get the stairs put back in so that people can enjoy the river, who are the easement holders, which we aren't able to do because they built that structure last year on that you guys did an enforcement order, I think, in July. So we'd like to know why that enforcement order hasn't been enforced and that structure actually removed that they built on that so that we can then further have the right-of-way holders file for putting new stairs in so that people can enjoy, I mean, the river should be enjoyed by all on the street is our feeling. So we'd like to hear some comments on that, hopefully, because that's definitely a problem for us. And I think that there's plenty of abutters here if they want to talk to that, but our goal would be to restore equal access to the water for all the easement holders who have been blocked from access of the water by this one landowner on the street for, I know that you can't adjudicate the land piece of this, but the access to the water and the wetlands and doing that, obviously we'd have to come back to this board to get those stairs put back in, I believe, and such. So we'd like to hear a little bit on all that. If you want to ask me any questions, I've probably sent the most information on this. If anybody has any questions, ask me. I'm here to provide the answers because my parents, they are elderly at 95 years old and 83. This isn't really their bailiwick to go, and I'm going to be with my sister, the landowners, for a very long time. So we have a vested interest in this parcel being returned and everybody's access on the streets, and future landowners who buy it being properly taken care of. And this has been going on for over 30 years. We just want to put an end to this. This is getting ridiculous. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. And again, we can only address things as it relates to the Wetland Protection Act and the town wetland bylaw. So I understand your frustration with deeds and access and things like that, but we are limited as to what we can do with that. Is there anybody else who'd like to make a statement? Is there anybody on Zoom? Please raise your hand digitally.
I don't see the list of participants like we usually see them on Zoom.
Usually we see people on the side.
Yeah. I'm just-
I don't know, I mean,
Do you know what I mean when it's showing up as a list?
There's 7 participants.
Can you go grab your computer now so you
the signature sheet gets used for either denial or approval, right?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
it does need to get signed by
Okay.
everybody.
All right, so I don't see anybody in Zoom. Is there any further comment or question from the board? Yeah, so anybody else? This is your last opportunity.
My name is John Ozarski. I live at 51 Oyster Cove Road. I also own the property that abuts the easement of 59 Oyster Cove Road. The dock would be less than 5 feet from my property at the river. It would also be a second dock on the same parcel of land on the river, and it would totally restrict anything that I could do with my parcel of land that's on the river. So 5 variances is a lot of variances for one dock. That part of the river, at low tide, the dock would be pretty much, there wouldn't be any water under it, that's for sure. And we just had a astronomically low tide, and for the first time in the 25 years that I've owned the property at 51 Oyster Cove Road, there was actually no water in the cove under anybody's docks, or it was all just dry. Even the swans the family of swans that live in there had to leave because there was no water for them to cruise around in. So, like I said, it's not 1 variance, it's not 2, it's 5, and there's a lot of other issues. The quahog population, they're going to have to dredge to put this in. There's going to be a lot of damage, I believe, under the water, which sometimes it's not even water there. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just one more comment. Yeah. So, again, Mark Ayotte, 59 Oyster Cove Road. On the water thing, I do believe that what's on the plan is incorrect for the soundings. I don't know where it came from, but I have a boat on the dock there. I'm going to tell you, if you go out and you do the soundings during proper time, those soundings that they have there are far off from what the true soundings are. Just like John was saying, the water levels are a lot less than what they said, because there is the bottom there goes up. So whatever happens, those soundings are definitely incorrect. So.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? I asked Chance, going once, twice. Okay. Unless there's any further discussion by the board, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the project with special conditions?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0 to 5 in the negative. So the project does not carry under the bylaw.
We do still need your signature, so please sign it. Just reminding them to please sign it.
Yes, everybody needs to sign it. All right, thank you very much, everybody. Next order of business.
Not doing the enforcement.
We can't do that right now, no. Wait, do we have it on? No, we don't have it on.
We've never we never put it on the agenda if it was part of the.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on, folks. Do you want to? All we can say is we can't issue anything.
Issue a draft, but we don't need to have that in the hearing anyway. So we can do that as a draft, and then they'll have to come back for you to ratify it.
Okay, so just so you understand, there was a question about the enforcement order. So what we are planning on doing is issuing a new enforcement order saying that you weren't in compliance with the previous enforcement order, and we'll move it from there then. Okay, so that you will see that coming back on a agenda probably in the next couple of weeks, I would say. Just to let you know, enforcement hearings do not allow for public comment, but you will see that on the agenda, okay? All right, thank you. Right, next order of, let's see, where are we here? Next order of business is another continued notice of intent for SE 83-2465, David Tedesco, 172 Pockanocket Drive, proposed bulkhead and pier system with dredging and land under the ocean, coastal bank, buffer zone into a coastal bank, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. You did not go through Mullinize, or did you review anything? In case
No.
you
Sign that.
You'll
I don't
need
think
to,
she can do that.
recuse yourself on this one.
Recuse, yeah.
Okay.
What's that?
I think abstain is, okay.
Huh?
Just,
I think abstain is fine. She wasn't on the board yet.
Oh, you can, that's true, yes, you can abstain.
Chairman, we have a section here that maybe Pam could, Pat could address the, approach the
Yeah.
agent.
Are you causing mistakes here?
I am.
Oh, yeah. All right, yeah.
Joe, can you go print a new
Joe?
voting sheet for 59 Oyster Cove
All right, so
Road?
we'll
Thank
hold
you.
on to that, and
Good thing you're here.
do you need the file or anything, Joe?
No, I shouldn't.
Okay.
Wait, you might need your computer, though.
Yes.
Get it.
We normally aren't this confused, believe me. All right, Kieran.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Members, for the record, my name is Kieran Healy. I'm a land surveyor with the BSC Group. With me tonight is the owners of the property, David and Kim Tedesco. We are looking to build a wall out at the site on Parkers River Lagoon. We were here a couple of weeks ago and we discussed the merits of the project and went through all the different issues at length, so I won't go through all of those again. But as a result of the last hearing, we were asked to do two things, and one was to move the wall back so that it was above the mean high water line, which we have done. We ended up moving it 4 feet to the east. And the second item was to identify the plants and where they were going. And we have a little sub-sketch on the bottom right-hand side that talks about the number of plants in each section. And as I mentioned, the wall was moved back 4 feet, and we reduced the size of the dead men so that it still would be on the property and not going to Pockanocket Drive. And other than that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you have. The pier system as well moved backward 4 feet, so we moved everything to the east 4 feet, which increased the size of the dredge area by that 4 feet, just so that we would be consistent all the way back. Other than that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thanks, Kieran. I'll turn it over. I'll turn it over to the rest of the commission first.
I'm sure that Ed's issue is that we're doing some dredging on this property, but this is area that was previously dredged.
No, that's not
fully.
his issue.
That's not what that's,
I know what it is.
anybody else?
Are we talking creeping juniper?
Juniper.
Are you poking, are you just trying to poke fun here?
I'm oblivious to what the issue is.
Creeping juniper?
Yeah,
Could you,
spell it incorrectly?
no, could you just do something other than creeping juniper, like bayberry, perhaps?
We don't have a problem with Bayberry.
Okay,
Amazing.
all right.
That's it.
I've got a problem with creeping juniper.
I'd be more than happy to switch this to Bayberry, Mr. Chairman.
I think you were talking, I figured you were talking to Dan Ogil, and he was saying, here, go
Do
ahead
the
and
juniper.
Poke it. All right, that's all I had. Anything else from the board? Brittany, anything?
The only thing I would add is some light monitoring, just photos is fine for the plants.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Monitoring for the plant establishment is the only thing I would add for a special condition.
Just the 3 years, right? Okay. Can we just get them to initial, to do 2 copies in hand for the juniper issue?
I can just put it as special condition. I don't need
You
to.
just do that? Okay, all right, that's fine.
And I will modify the plan anyway, so that way when people see the plan, they know that they're putting in bayberry. We won't
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
come back in 3 years and have beautiful juniper out there.
That's right. It's like I'm going to see it. Thank you, Kieran. Anybody in the audience on this one? Anybody on Zoom? Oh, there's one. I can't see who it is, but
Chris Erickson.
Chris? Chris Erickson, if you want to unmute yourself and just identify who you are.
Okay, can you see me or no?
Just hear you.
Okay, so I'm the abutter on 2 Cape Isle Drive, and yesterday I just submitted to Brittany an edited drawing of the lagoon, and I just want to make you aware that I have a float there, and it was approved back in 1999, just a RDA, but I never completed the application. It was for a second float. And I just want to make sure that you guys fully see that, because I'm in process of getting it licensed through the DEP, but they sent it back to the Yarmouth Conservation because they wanted it updated, the application. So Brittany's well aware of it, and I just want you guys to all be aware of it because it's not drawn into the, BSC's site plan. But I sent her a copy, and also you guys have an aerial. It's in a Dave Tedesco plan, and you can see where the docks are all positioned. And I'm not opposing to Tedesco project. I know the neighbor, and I'm not opposing anything. I just want you guys to all be aware and have a clear understanding of just how this all ties together, because I don't want to lose my space. I've had it for 25 years. I have 2 boats, and I am pursuing, this licensing of my float, and I just, like I said, I just wanted to make public notice to all parties, and I guess that's it.
Thanks, Chris. I want to acknowledge I received your sketch plan. New material can't be submitted to the board less than a week before the hearing, and we did acknowledge that you had a float there at the last hearing, but it has not been completely permitted yet, which is why it's not shown on the plan. So we acknowledge that you're in the process, but it's not permitted fully, so that's why it's not shown on the plan. But you're not opposing the project, is what I'm hearing, so thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. Anybody else on Zoom? I see nobody else. Any further discussion among the board? Brittany, anything else?
No.
All right. If there's anything else, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the project with special conditions, and we'll receive that revised plan too, Karen?
Sure, I'll be in touch with Brittany.
All right, thank you. Is there?
So moved.
Second.
Don't get all mixed up, please.
There we go. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And one abstention, right?
Abstain, yes.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, members.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen. All right, so this first one is going to be this project, okay? This is the one that
So you just passed
everybody
to David.
signs.
You don't.
And then Pat, this one you do not sign, okay?
You too, Ellie, don't sign that.
You want to see Joe go back to his grant?
I don't know, it was kind of fun.
All right, next order of business is another continued notice of intent for SE 83-2469, Alfredo Lopilato, 21 Television Lane, proposed elevation and relocation of a single-family dwelling, septic tank replacement, regrading, and retaining walls and land subject to coastal storm flowage.
Hello.
Hello.
I
The
think,
representative not here?
I'm sorry?
Did you see him run in?
No, I'm missing
Oh.
somebody on that. I'm missing
Is
somebody.
Strong Tree here for this?
Hello?
No,
Oh,
she's on
Yes.
Zoom. The
Oh,
environmental
my
scientist.
Lord.
okay.
All right, Katerina,
Hello, everyone. I am Katerina Korloff from Strong Tree Engineering. I appreciate your hearing our continued project. Sorry, I can't be-
Katerina, before we get going, I just want to let you know, we have a policy that states the engineers and applicants should be, make an appearance in person at the hearing.
I understand that, and Matt Lehman, who was here previously, was intending to come. Unfortunately, he had a family emergency, and I do live 2 hours away, so I was not able to drive out in time. Is there any way that you would allow us, in this case, for me to sit as a representative? Especially considering the only issue that came up during our last hearing was the DEP number had not been assigned yet.
Does anybody object from the board?
All we have is a DP number. Did we vote?
We just continued.
We just continued?
Okay, do we have the DEP number now?
We do.
Okay. Oh, yeah, we do. All right, if there's anything else, did you need anything else then, Katerina?
No, I don't need anything else. I'm happy to discuss the project with you, to do the summary. And of course, Alfred Lopilato, the homeowner, is there in person as well.
So there were no changes between last time and this time?
Right, we didn't ask them to do anything else, right? We were just waiting on the DEP.
You were discussing the flood zone with the wall, but you did not come to any conclusion. So it seemed like you were continuing for DEP number, but didn't make it clear if you were okay with the wall for the flood zone.
Yeah.
We, in the past, have approved projects that have included fill in the flood zone. It has been a policy of this board to encourage the least amount of fill possible to achieve the same goal. But in the past, we have approved projects with fill in the flood zone.
So I guess my question, Mr. Chairman, is, are the retaining walls going to redirect the floodwaters to the street? And how do we know, yes or no?
May I chime in, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, so the entirety of this project falls within the land subject to coastal storm flowage. The FEMA flood zone base elevation is at 11 feet. The house is currently situated at the elevation of 5.6 feet. And so we propose to raise it to 12.2 to above that flood zone. This is, I believe, beneficial to the neighborhood for multiple reasons. One, currently stormwater runoff is just going directly onto the road. So by adding these stormwater catch basin improvements, the chambers, subsurface chambers, we're actually creating a space for water retention to slow down the flow of water directly onto the street. And the purpose of the retaining wall not only we're going to fill with the soil, but we also are improving the septic system. And also, again, giving more space for the stormwater catch chambers. And this will slow down the flowage from the site because this system will also, all the runoff that would normally go off the roof directly onto the ground and then just pouring onto the road, that would then be diverted into these new system chambers that we're proposing. And the addition of the retaining wall is not anticipated to add to the flooding issues of the street. In fact, again, the specific issues to the side will be slowed down. Now, we cannot slow down the ocean, so when there is flooding from coastal or from precipitation, this is going to be a continued issue. but there are existing stormwater sewer drains in the neighborhood. This was discussed last week. There's one directly north of the property, and that is where a lot of the project, the property and neighborhood water tends to pool, just directly north of the property. And so at this point, it's the property that's getting subjected to a lot of water, and we do not intend to divert that and make it a neighborhood property. We simply are attempting to improve the conditions and to mitigate the flood issues in a way that we don't anticipate will burden any further the neighborhood.
That's it for me. Thank you.
That's it? Okay. Anybody else? Brittany?
Nope.
Is there anybody in the audience on this one? Anybody on Zoom? Right, would some,
Just add that if anyone's been out to the property, it's staked out, and the retaining walls are pretty far back into my property line. The flooding is, if you look at that, the flooding is on the roadway. The retaining walls are, I mean, as you can see, pretty well into my property. I've gone over the scenario in my head several times, and I'm trying to, I'm not a scientist like Katerina is, but at the end of the day, I know that water travels down hills, and if I slope it down, I can only imagine that the water is just gonna be directed more into the street opposed to retaining walls and retaining water into my property. I personally am losing a lot of property by doing that because naturally I don't have much of a front yard anymore, but I think that it's, at the end of the day, the best layout for that piece of land. And that's all. And again, as I said before, I have great support from my neighbors and the board. I have had nobody object to it, that I know of anyways. And that's about it.
okay, thank you.
I have one question.
Yeah, Paul.
Maybe for Brittany. We've heard the explanations about why the retaining walls might even improve the property in the runoff. I don't understand how that would happen, but are the explanations that the wall would somehow mitigate the runoff situation in that area, in your opinion, valid?
I appreciate you placing a high value on my opinion, but
I do.
so in my opinion, yes, any wall in a flood zone can redirect floodwaters, especially when you're experiencing predominantly coastal flooding. This area experiences both coastal flooding and flooding from intense precipitation. So what they're saying is true for stormwater. The stormwater is contained on the property instead of flowing into the street during intense storms. But the stormwater that's already accumulated onto the property during intense storms will stay there instead of being able to flow onto a relatively flat surface. I think the top of the wall is below the floodplain elevation. So if you get the most severe flood, coastal flood, it'll still overtop the wall and some will be able to infiltrate. But on your regular coastal flood, it will still push some water, maybe negligible amount of water into the street. And there are other houses in the neighborhood that have similar walls in place.
So it does have a function that could be seen as positive.
From a stormwater perspective,
Okay, thanks. Hope I didn't put you on the spot.
you definitely did. I think that
She recovered well.
our stormwater, our floodplain regulations, this is a great example of why we have them. But we do have to acknowledge the fact that every site is different. And it may be more applicable in closer areas to the ocean, where the houses are much closer together. Yeah, so it's a difficult project, but I probably would approve it because of the presence of other properties that are similar on the same street. But I don't vote, so it is up to
And
you.
just to, just for the sake of explanation, the folks come in here with their experts, and we have our experts, so that's why I asked the question.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, anybody else? I went to neighborhood, right? Anybody else on the board? All right, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the project with special conditions?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain again.
And one abstention.
Do we have to, point of clarification, do we have to count as an abstention if she was not eligible to vote because she wasn't on the board yet when we opened this item? Or do we just say that
On
it
the
was
board.
4-0?
You were not
or
on the board at the time,
No.
this was, oh, no, so no, you don't
would
even
just
have
be
to abstain, it's just 5-0.
Instead of 5-0-1.
Nothing.
Sorry.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Your project passed.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
So this one is new, so you're eligible.
Next order of business is a notice of intent for SE 83-2471 Henry and Nadine Gill, 206 South Street, proposed construction of a pier, ramp, and float, and replacement of a stone revetment and land under the ocean, coastal beach, coastal bank, salt marsh, and land containing shellfish.
Oops, sorry. Do you want an easel? Okay, thank you. That works.
Thank you. Bob Perry, Cape Cod Engineering, and Bain and Nadine Gill are here tonight. We have, it's a proposed coastal management proposed dock project at 206 South Street, South Yarmouth. A little bit of history, there was a notice of intent filed for raise and replace on the house. The Gills have decided to maintain and just remodel the nice old Craftsman house that's here today. So the setting that was going to be changed is going to stay the same, and they've focused their attention now on the waterfront. There was also a dock proposal here 3 years ago. It was approved under the Wetland Act, and it was not approved under the bylaw on a basis of recreational interference, which we did not agree with that, but we went ahead and looked at other options and tried to sort of remediate that concern. So we shifted the dock location to the north end of the parcel. That is a location where a dock once existed. If you wanted to see a land court plan, I have it. It's 1922. Shows a very long dock here at the north end, not so far from where this is proposed. And I'm going to address the project in basically three pieces. The first would be to get the sort of the straightforward part is the erosion protection. We have a lot of dredge material that was deposited here decades and decades ago, which formed a kind of a plateau on the south end of the lot. There's an osprey pole, you might have seen it. And we know that there's, quite a bit of dune land that sort of flows back there. It's debatable, but along the leading edge of it shows quite a bit of dune character. There's a lot of fill, but we're not proposing to extend the revetment. We want to reconstitute the entire revetment because it is a fairly loose and collapsing collection of riprap stone. And as it goes to the south, where it integrates with what is the old breakwater jetty for the Bass River, that organized line of stone you see actually has a wooden core to it running along here. And it also continues off to the north. It was formalized, I think, around 1910. It's licensed under Chapter 91, and we're only proposing to reconstitute the revetment, which, as I said, is licensed. But on the south, we're proposing a fiber core lift. It's a core fiber lift, not a set of fiber rolls, but it's a durable, multi-layer sewn burrito, for lack of a better analogy, filled with sand. It would be periodically sand covered, not in a quantity that would threaten the river, but it's a meaningful measure to control the flanking erosion that's occurring here. There is no discernible filter fabric in the revetment, and there's a lot of sinkholes beginning to form. And over the last more than several decades, the gills have just tolerated it, but it's actually become unsafe. So the reconstruction of the revetment is a component of this project. Access would be through the upland. And there's no aquatic vegetation seaward of the revetment. We do have a little bit of salt marsh, which graduates to be a significant salt marsh deposit that's inboard of the ancient breakwater. And any work on the end would be done essentially from the side or from the upland or from the sandy beach. There's no aquatic vegetation issue. Other revetments in Bass River we've built from the side, and this probably is no exception. It would just be disassembled and reassembled with a larger grade stone. Because the riprap that's there, it's been scattered before in storms, and it's just not a wise thing to, if you're going to do all this work, you might as well increase the size of the stone and key them together. So I can take questions on that, or I can move to something which was based on the previous visit. We've moved the dock to the north end of Locust. It's absolute that this portion of Bass River has an alcove in it. And we have photographs, if you needed to see. We've got about 470 feet between two piers. There is one to the south, and there's one to the north. And in trying to address the concern for navigation, which I just want to elaborate on that a little. We're 470 feet between docks, and we are 260, I think 265 to the edge of the navigational channel. I've scoped out this entire area. We have codium and some brown algae that's in sporadic locations on the bottom there. No eelgrass. And so by locating the dock where it had been once located, we've got, and I have to refer to my plan, 195 feet to the dock to the north and 252 feet to the dock to the south. We have stationed the float at the location where we have just slightly better than 3 feet of water at the seaward end, and it's just deep water going out from there. Be great if it could be a little farther out, but it's 128 feet from mean high water. And as a result of that, it does not meet your 80-foot length limit. But in reviewing this location and this project and examining waiver rationale, we put into the narrative the reasoning for that, where a blanket 80-foot limit, whether your dock crosses 80 feet of salt marsh or whether your dock crosses 80 feet of open sand that happens to be a unique area of the river because it has been altered by man in the first place. There's very little additional adverse impact, if any, to the extra length of the dock. We're simply looking at an alcove in the river where we are 25 feet inshore from a line that's connecting the two docks that exist there today. We're not extending out, certainly not farther than those docks. And effectively, because of the shape of this portion of the river, that alcove that we're describing is armored. It's almost as if it were a landward extension of the pier. And we are not crossing any valuable aquatic vegetation. We do have a Shelfer study that indicated there's quahog population here, and there's no surprise there. Your regulations allow for quahog population to be relayed out, and there's certainly no objection to doing that. You can see that we're 20 feet to the property line, and effectively, there is no property line out in the river, but just to be fair, we showed you the extension of it, and we're 16 feet from the extension of that lot line with the float, but we entered a communication from the direct abutter. The trustee issued a letter saying they have no objection to that. So with that approval, that doesn't put us into waiver territory for that. Even though we're not centered in the center of the lot, we tried to sort of get the greatest spread between the two docks, although it was, I think, just a plain rationale. There's no difference in depth if you run back and forth across the front of the lot. And just to take it out from being directly in front of the house, we nudged it to the north a little bit. So the crucial question is, can this dock be approved with a waiver? And the narrative goes through the reasoning for that, as I said, and we know you've had other applications, and we want this project to stand on its own 2 feet. It's a standard dock. It has lots of clearance as you come off the upland. People can walk beneath it. It has very ample elevation all the way out, but it's not overly elevated where it is above the tidelands. We did lengthen the ramp so that it would be a little shorter as a permanent structure. So we do have a 20-foot ramp instead of a 14-footer. And because if you were to evaluate this on the basis of comparative impacts, given the way the regulations are written, if ever there was a location that qualified for a length waiver, I think you would be looking at it. And that is what is now before you. I don't have a lot more to add because a lot of the dock is somewhat standard, and you've seen a lot of docks. So we have, there are no more opportunities for a dock to be established in this part of Bass River. And historically, there was a dock here. And so we'd be happy to try to answer questions you have about the project. So I think I'll leave it there, and thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Questions from the board?
Yeah, I have a
Okay,
question
Paul?
about the depth of the water. If you can just review that again. It says,
Right.
float shall be no less than 3 feet of mean low water. And the depth of the water on the, let me see, where am I? Let's see, depth of the water, landward side of the float shall be no less than 2.5 feet. Maybe I'm mixing things up a little bit, but it looks like at the end of the dock, you only have like 1.5 feet. You don't have much water down there at mean low and mean high.
It's quite flat. We are stationing our float at approximately where the 4-foot contour, minus 4-foot contour runs under it, and it actually drops off to 5. But those are NAVD 88 elevations. So if you were looking at soundings, or I don't even think soundings is a proper word, if we convert NAVD 88 to mean low water, it's approximately a 1.3-foot difference. So the end of our float is almost out to where we have a -5 contour. So we have slightly more than 3 feet of water at average mean low tide, at the outboard end of the float, and no less than a half a foot, less than that at the inshore.
I guess so, but it
Why
doesn't
does
seem
it
like your
say-
plan is reflecting that at all.
Well,
Maybe, I mean, you said a lot of things there, but
I am seeing the same thing you are, I hope.
maybe you want to come around here because it looks like mean high is 1.5, mean low is 1.4.
Yeah, Bob,
There's should be a minus sign there, so that, that's about a 2.9 foot difference. So this is the bottom trace,
Yeah,
and so that's the depth of water. We try to show graphically our floats floating at low tide. I don't know that a float would draft that much. It's approximately a foot, but you'll scale that to be at least 2.5 feet at that distance. And so at high tide, the float would be floating up here. So mean high at 1.5 and mean low at minus 1.4. And that's we're getting close to the mouth of the river. The tide range could even be a little more there, but we're using numbers that we've observed that are listed. So have I cleared that up, or?
not really, but
No.
that's okay. I don't
Okay,
want
I
to
don't-
hog your time here.
No, that's all right. Just that if that's the key, if you were to scale that.
No, it's okay. I'll listen some more.
Okay,
Okay,
there you are.
all right. It just looks like it's too low to me. Maybe others would help me out with that. And also, of course, the other thing that probably will be discussed is that, and you brought it up about, our bylaw talks about 80 feet, and it's 128 feet. And you don't seem to gain any more water by going on 128 feet, but maybe I'm misunderstanding something. So let me listen to the rest of the discussion.
So I can explain that. We certainly do. That's the reason we're out at 128, because we get ourselves to the drop-off. Right at the drop-off. They can see the contour lines.
Okay, all right, appreciate that, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
This is really, it might have to do with means and methods, and, but I'm just looking at possible exposure that could upset the bedding. Could you explain general note number 9, which reads that the bedding stone shall be of angular granite stone, blah, 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 8 to 12 inches. This second sentence, a secondary stone layer is advised and may be required dependent upon the resulting stone face void sizes subject to engineer inspection. Could you elaborate?
Yes, I can. Thanks for asking. One of the things I deal with routinely are contracts going out to revetment, quote-unquote, revetment builders that don't know how to build revetments. I don't have control over who builds this. I do have control over inspections. And if I find myself working with a contractor who has limited ability to either purchase and deliver appropriate stone for stone revetment, and I have large gaps or different qualities of bedding stone, I have the right, by that note, to require an intermediate layer of stone that would sequester the bedding stone from coming through those gaps in the armor stone. My preference is to have someone build a revetment with minimum porosity in it and some face texture. And I have a lot of that going on this winter, and I had one significant, interesting project where we organized it finally, and it was one of those cases where it became necessary to look at that specification so that we were properly policing the construction to keep the bedding stone in the revetment. It's just it's there for protection, for quality.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I just have a question. What are you going to do with all these stones that are already down there?
Well, that are some of those stones are adequate for bedding stone.
Okay.
And I would call them almost a riprap quality. They're not chips, but they're chunks of what appears to be non-native granite, sort of a blue. They're not blue stone, but they can be used for any number of things.
Are you using them in the wall you're rebuilding?
No, like I said, if the contractor chooses, if they're, once things come apart, typically, something like that would be just trucked away, and I wouldn't have any remaining stone or chips. There's some police work that goes on when a job like this is done. You make sure you don't leave stone on the beach. I typically want bedding stone confined in a bin. But that stone that you see there is not unlike certain stones that you will find going into the core of a breakwater or a jetty or a revetment. Our preference is to use native granite so that it matches the color of the armor. Just a better thing.
Okay. There's a lot of stone there, that's,
Well,
just
there is,
wondering what
but
you were doing.
yeah, and a loader or an excavator would make fairly quick work of putting that into a truck and taking it away. Some is usable.
Anybody else?
I just want to say I'm having a hard time with the length of the pier being almost 50% more than 50% or more than what we normally accept. So, just a comment.
We knew that going in, and certainly we've talked about that. The pier would not be possible without the waiver, because we believe that the depth requirement is the thing that rules. You don't want boats traversing a shallow, whether it's vegetated or not. And the activity, I think there was a mooring here. The activity here over the years was where people come to the beach with a boat. And the length is just that, it's a length, but it's not traversing vegetation, not traversing a clay bottom or anything like that. It's the length, yes, but the length by itself doesn't represent an adverse environmental impact. It needs to be qualified for what is it a length over. That was our reasoning for the length. The fact that you cannot have the dock meet the depth if you don't have the length.
So the dock in order to meet the depth, the dock has to be 100 and whatever feet it is.
It's the minimum right now because of the depth. We've just got the depth that you require. Fortunately, we're so far from the channel. You probably routinely see docks that are looking for channel waivers, or they're some kind of salt marsh traverse, but this is a very good location for considering the waiver on length, because it is a shape of the shoreline that disadvantages this property at a location that's 400 feet between two docks and right at the mouth of the river. So many of the issues that you would be faced with in a conveyment or a tidal flat with mud, or somebody having to get in their boat and then traverse this complicated area of shoals and shallows to get to a channel, that's not this.
Anybody else? I'm sorry, Pat.
I also have kind of a problem with the length, just because this is our regulations, and again, just put that out there.
Well, I appreciate that comment too.
It's,
But you approved a 130-foot dock, 200, or about 1,200 feet from here, and not long before that, another one about a similar length, and those are crossing salt marshes, and those are very, very close to navigational channels. And I've been present during some of your review meetings when you yourselves had said that there used to be a one-size-fits-all review, and you moved away from that. I believe Paul was one of the ones who commented, there are cases that are worthy of consideration for a favorable conclusion on length. And this is shorter, I believe, than those facilities. And so I was happy to represent the Gills to come in and speak with you about this, because it looked as if you compare all of the decisions that you make, and you look at the specific conditions at this site, that you would be able to reach a favorable conclusion. That's what we thought.
Ignorant question, is it out of our purview to look at this in reference, or ask for, a plan view of this relative to the navigational channel?
He shows the distance to the channel.
It's got the 265 feet.
But relative to the other, maybe big picture, you mentioned other peers, I mean, is there
I can,
You do an aerial?
yeah. No, that's not outside our purview. We can see it, we'll show it.
I just want to add, we're not trying to put you into a position where you're granting anything that would be of a precedent nature. Everyone in many commissions are concerned about that.
That's what I was looking for.
This project seems to.
Channel line, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I see that when you're done?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, I ought to keep my mouth shut.
Okay, I have a question.
I just have something, if I may. Okay.
We'll go to Paul and then Brittany.
I thank Mr. Parrish for bringing up the past to haunt me a little bit, but anyway, I think we try to consider all of this in terms of the regulations, and, if no one else commented on my questions, and maybe my questions were off base in terms of the depth of the water, that's something I saw in the plan that confused me a little bit vis-à-vis our regulations. I remember in some instances, there were considerations given to something you referenced, which is the I don't want to call it the topography or the shape of the area. That was a consideration back with something else. I don't know if anybody else has anything to say about that. I went out there and it seemed like at the time, I think it was low tide, and boy, the water seemed far away, And so I understand why you want to reach it by going 128 feet. But if you went a shorter distance, you were basically saying what, at low tide, you'd have no water underneath the dock?
Well, you don't have to come inshore too far before you're in the 2-foot category.
Yeah, and you're saying, in terms of the way you read this plan, there is sufficient water under the dock at 128 feet?
Absolutely. I staked it. I don't know if the buoy's still there, but I could have gotten lost in the river if I'd gone any farther. It just drops off so nicely.
It drops off me, so it's really, so I must be looking at something, yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe in the future, it's super helpful when they're looking at multiple plans, just to have an arrow right here between and say how much depth there is
I agree
at
with you.
low water.
Yeah. Well, we're happy to do that. I sometimes put corresponding negative numbers on that actually are mean low water datum values, because that's really, you're just basically reading the depth of water at low tide when you read the number. DEP changed to an NAVD 88 requirement for plans. We used to put them all on mean low water if we could figure it out, and we usually can. But this gets confusing. It looks like there's more water. To me, it's reading -5, but it's not. It's -4, minus 3.3 to 3.5 at the end of that flow. That's your depth of water there. We can't, if we move it 3 feet inshore, we're cutting it close, and I'd rather not cut it close. So we're 128. We are right at the drop-off. And it goes right off. You can see it. It's not steep, but it just keeps going.
128, it drops off.
Sorry?
We said at 128, it drops off?
Yes, where the float is stationed, we have this wide distance between 2-foot contours. And we have this much distance between 2-foot contours. So there's this to get from -2 to -4, and there's this to get from -4 to -6. It just goes, it's perfect. It's actually perfect, except for the length, which isn't crossing vegetated shallows or salt marsh. That's sand.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Brittany?
I have a question about the revetment replacement. Do you know what the slope is of the revetment that you're proposing?
We could determine that. I'd have to get my scale out, but
Yeah.
it's a rock pile. It's got variable pitch, but
Just CZM recommends a slope no steeper than 1.5 to 1 and recommends closer to 1 to 3,
right, we would.
which
we
I was
would
able
have-
to find just to make sure that I was thinking of it right.
I
So I'd like,
don't have a slope value on there. That's my mistake. I should have given it to you, but our revetments are all 1.5 to 1.
okay, that's great. And you mentioned before some difficulty perhaps with implementation with some of the builders. What you're showing looks like it has a rough face. Is there any way for you to police that in the implementation to make sure that it's rough faced when it's installed?
Yes, there should be a face roughness. It's, the face roughness should be on a scale of 1 to 1.5 feet. So it's an effort to control
Okay.
face roughness, which, right on the plan, and some guys want to build these smooth things. It's not the way to do it.
Okay, I missed
Some
that,
of them
thank
want a
you.
rock pile. That's not the way to do it either.
And my last question is, you said there was no moorings there. It does look like there was a mooring there in September. Is that
Sorry,
owned?
I didn't hear you.
It looks like there is a mooring there in September. Is that owned by the family? Is that your boat? Okay, so you would, obviously, if you had the pier, you would no longer use that mooring? Right. Is that correct? Okay.
How deep do you think it is at that mooring at low tide?
I get wet, because I get mad, because I have to walk.
But-
At low tide, it's very shallow,
Right.
very shallow.
So that's the use that's going on there now in shallow water, which would be more harmful to the bottom because the mooring scope, if this is legal mooring, it swings around, the mooring chain drags around the bottom and creates a scour for the circumference of that radius. And there's an established use. We're removing that damage from this location with the dock.
Okay, and I just wanted to point out one other thing, or two other things to the board, is that one of the two reasons it was a similar dock on over the Salt Marsh was denied in 2018 was for the length, and then also for its interference with recreation with sailboat tacking. This did go in front of Waterways, and they did not find that as an issue, and I would imagine that's because it's already impeded by the mooring now. There's a mooring there, so there's no ability for sailboats to tack in there any longer. And the other thing that the Waterways Board recommended is that they do wish to have a shellfish mitigation fee for this dock. They have not explicitly defined that yet, so it would still kind of be working with them if this is approved to define what that shellfish mitigation would entail.
I know there's no objection to that. In fact, the conversation at Waterways had to do with scallop lanterns, but I was quite sure that I heard that scallop lanterns would require greater depth.
Okay, it would be kind of in collaboration with them because they haven't defined it
Mooring's
yet.
been there for decades.
Okay,
It wasn't, we didn't have a discussion with Waterways about the mooring presence, except that it would remove that mooring from, or there was the possibility that it would remove the mooring from service, because nobody else is going to use the mooring. But it was, I think there was a 4 to, it was unanimous with one abstention at Waterways.
okay. I do have one other thing. So just to clarify, the home order of conditions does not intend to move forward at all? Or it may?
No, there may be some work that would be related to that would
Okay.
be under it, but no, there's no demolition of the house anymore.
I just am worried about having different sizes of mitigation planting on both plans. I would prefer that they be the same size and planting plan so that if one's implemented, if both's implemented, we have the same plan. You're showing 5 to 6 feet, and the other plan had an 8-foot buffer and already has a planting plan associated with it. I think it would.
We were not in the riverfront area, but I know that at the time, there was an interest in mitigating for all of what was being proposed.
Yeah.
And that's no longer being done, but I knew that you had the requirement along the cap, so we showed the 5-foot, and it would be planted with salt-tolerant native plants, but we didn't provide a species to you.
Yeah.
Just wanted to get through the larger issue, which is the length waiver on the pier.
Okay.
It's the 800-pound gorilla in the room, right?
So yes, if depending on the approval, we will just need planting information. And then also, I would assume that you're planting beach grass over your sand.
Oftentimes, the cover sand on those.
It doesn't
so
last. It's
temporary,
sacrificial.
but
Okay.
Above it, yes. Behind it, yes, because that will stay in most cases.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
You can add that. That's no problem.
Okay, anybody in the audience? Oh, I'm sorry, anybody else on the board? Anybody in the audience? Anybody on Zoom? Raise your hand digitally. I see none. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the project with special conditions?
So moved.
For a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Can we
Okay,
do
so
a
I'm-
roll call?
Aye.
Raise your hand for aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, nay, right? Okay.
I should get up and scurry out of here. So
You did that the last time, don't do that again.
don't hold out against me. Not my thing. So, thank you all for your consideration on this project, because the reasoning, I don't want to go on, but the reasoning for us was extraordinarily important. It mattered, and I guess it did matter too, so thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. The special conditions will include the shellfish mitigation and the planting plan. And the regular DMF ones, time of year, and, okay, just want to make sure.
These are at the bottom of the,
That's what I was
Thank you.
looking for, thank you.
and I don't sign this, right?
You don't sign it, no. If you voted no, don't sign it.
I don't.
First two are, let's see, the first two are okay without, or are they easy?
The
or
first one.
Just the first one, right? Okay. All right, so we have certificates of compliance. We have a request for certificate of compliance for SE 83-2095, Paul Butler, 164 Driftwood Lane. There's no issues with that one. Do I have a motion to approve the certificate of compliance?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
You can go ahead and do that.
Unless you
can
want
vote
to
for that.
abstain. That's
Okay, next one is for certificate of compliance request for SE 83-2161, Paul Butler, 164 Driftwood Lane. Any issues, Brittany?
Sorry, I just got tripped up on the number. 2161. So there's no problem with the construction of the building for this. Everything's fine. The only issue that we saw on site is I tried to describe briefly to you. Where did you upload the photos for this? Did you put it in the other COC?
Yeah, that's probably what I did.
The other
Yeah,
2095? Not seeing them. Okay. Either way, Joe's gonna look for the photos. There's along the pathway to the dock that goes up here, there is an area of mitigation planting on the property to the north that was sheet mulched, and it is slightly sloped, and there are gullies through the sheet mulch carrying mulch over the path and onto the coastal bank and eroding the bank. It would be great if I could show you a photo. But so there is some erosion on the coastal bank right now. I don't think it's something that's going to take too long to remedy, but we do need to stabilize that area and get something in there to help with the issue.
Just back out to the conservation, because it's in both, I left it out.
In the big,
outside, yeah,
big
so
folder.
it's just in conservation.
Okay, here we are. Sorry. Thanks. Here we are on the path. And there's mulch going off the side onto the bank. And it's kind of eroded from here. You've got something there. It just didn't seem to be big enough to keep that mulch back. And the mitigation areas shouldn't have been mulched like that initially. And this is the area where there's some loose sand sediment too. And it is on the next property, but it is owned by the same person. So I didn't know how.
And that, you said that was a mitigation area that had the mulch in it?
It was, yeah. That's irrelevant to what we're... Yeah, that was all I had for the path pictures. So we do have some organic material and some loose sediment on the coastal bank side, and it's running down into the water. So I'm not really exactly sure how it would be stabilized. You have those rocks there.
Yeah, that water must have been moving.
We had 2 inches of rain on Monday.
When we out there Tuesday?
Monday, right? Oh, we went Tuesday.
Yeah.
If you'd gone last week, I'd be careful. I wouldn't have this issue. Because when I was out there doing my inspection, I didn't notice any mulch that had it ran down here.
Well, what are we going to do about it? I mean, this is why
I mean, we have to, it's usually in the special conditions that you don't mulch the sheet mulch, the mitigation area, but
Well,
gets
if I may.
missed.
Yep.
Yeah, I was out there, and I guess the problem, as I saw it, was that folks put down that black,
Yeah, I
keep
think
calling it sheet,
they had some weed block underneath.
and unless that's taken up, that the mulch is just gonna continue to wash over the top of it. It doesn't really work, and I don't know why landscapers use that method. Certainly would be better for the soil and everything else if they didn't use that type of, I don't know what you wanna call it, membrane or whatever the heck it is. It just keeps, when it dries out, it blows off the top and everything else, so it just wasn't a great job that they did, and I don't know if it's detrimental to the entire project, but, I mean, it could be all taken up and just put the mulch down, that probably would stay there, but, I don't know if we could require that.
Well, if you got the fabric underneath it, it's gonna continue to leak anything that's on top of it then. So that sort of says to me that you gotta get rid of the fabric. As part of the mitigation area, this is why I always recommend that you shouldn't use mulch. You can either let it naturalize, or you could use some sort of a seed mix and let the seed mix take over and essentially be the mulch, but it also absorbs a lot of the moisture and nutrients that are moving through, which is the whole point behind the mitigation area in the first place. So, I mean, if you would just want to remove the remove the fabric and come back, then I'm okay with that.
Are we sure there was filter fabric in this section, or was it more by the pool that we saw the fabric?
It's all down that walkway.
It's all over here? Okay.
I mean, I don't see it in those pictures, but I wasn't out at the site, so.
It was in one of your pictures pretty clearly.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, if I could, what I'll do is I'll ask to meet the owner on site and go through the issue with him and have his landscaper come out and come up with some ideas on how to deal with it. And then if it's major, come back and talk to Brittany about it. If it's just something minor like removing the fabric, then go ahead and get that done. But let me just see, I'll probably go out there the next rain season we have and see how it's flowing and see what's creating the runoff. It looks like some of it's coming actually off the lawn.
Yeah.
The way it's
Yeah.
running all the way from up there. So, best time to see it is when it's raining, so I'll go out there and check it out.
Maybe
That's
tomorrow.
the wrong Folder.
Maybe tomorrow, when I leave here, I'll make the phone call and maybe tomorrow.
Okay, all right, so you want to just, you want to continue this for like a month and just, so you have a little bit of time before you come back, or?
If I could continue for the 2 weeks, and then I'll ask to continue for the extra 2 weeks if I need to, because there's
Okay.
some economic decisions being made, so.
So this one, we will continue for 2 weeks. Do I have a motion, to that effect?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so we'll see you in 2 weeks. All right, who's second? Who, was it?
Bradford.
Bradford, you did? Okay. All right, so I'm gonna just sign the top one, do not sign the bottom one. Next order of business is another certificate of compliance for SE 83-2343, David Palmer, 17 Crest Circle. This is a partial COC request.
So this one, again, I don't have any issues with the construction portion. And this is just a partial because the plants were just installed in the fall. But it's just to note that the site is not yet fully stabilized. The silt fence is still in, the wattle is still in, and there is some evidence of erosion past the little pathway at the bottom of the hill there. So we just need a little bit of stabilization and to make sure that it's stabilized before we get rid of that fence. To consider as the permit will still be open after this because it's a partial anyway, but I just wanted to make sure you knew that there's still some stabilization to get going on in that back.
So could we request the partial for the house? The biggest thing is for the house.
Yeah, the partial is fine with the exception of the plantings and stabilization of the yard to just be continued. It will remain open.
So that's for 2343, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Brittany, I have some jute netting left over from the other house down the street. Would it be
Yeah.
acceptable if I ran that right around the bottom where I took down the silt fence?
Yeah, I think if you take down the silt fence and remove the straw wattle, you will have to put down some sort of wetland native seed mix underneath the jute because there is it looks like the sod left a bit of a lip here, so it's going to be like a pretty big drop off, so it needs to be stabilized. And there's some loose soil here too, so if you put down some sort of native seed mix and some jute over it with stakes, that should do it.
Brittany, on the next one, which is same owner, we talked about taking off the tags. It's the same thing on this.
Oh, yeah.
This place too.
If you could take off the tags to the plants, they're just litter, future litter.
Once we remember what they were.
Yeah.
Phones are for
It helps me greatly when I'm counting plants.
taking pictures.
So I'm always telling people, leave those plants on, leave those stickers on.
You've got to help the engineers out. They don't have that.
So the partial is good.
All right, so we're good on issuing a partial certificate. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. And another request for certificate of compliance for SE 83-2344, David Palmer, 24 Valley Road, another partial, is that right?
Same, the plants went in the fall. This one is all good to go. I would just put a condition, there's construction debris still all on the property. Hold on one second. In addition to the same plant tags that need to be removed. There's some construction debris on the coastal bank on the side. So that should just get out of there. And if you could just send me a picture when it's out, and then I can issue the COC.
Okay. All right, is there a motion for the partial certificate for SE 83-2344?
Is this a,
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, just to be clear, this is only a partial one for,
Correct.
okay,
Right, because the plantings have not been in long enough.
okay.
Are there monitoring reports on these? I was going to ask for the other one too, but,
Oh, Bradford. Can you, monitoring?
yeah, did we ask for monitoring reports?
I don't know, hold
I
on.
don't believe so.
I'm just asking, I'm not. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
We did not. You ask for reports.
That brings us to the conclusion of our certificates of
Mr. Chairman, if I
compliance.
could, Just one
Yes.
question. Seeing as I've submitted plans and if you approved the plans, I take it for when we submit that the plans have taken, we don't need to submit any more plans with those.
No, you don't need an as-built for the second section of the COC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This brings us to the enforcement portion of our agenda. Joyce Landscaping for John and Susan Bassick, 122 Thatcher Shore Road, unpermitted removal of vegetation and filling of a bordering vegetated wetland and its buffer zone.
Hi, so this property recently closed out one certificate of compliance in the fall. So they have a recent as-built plan of the site that I will slowly pull up. And so here's the site. There's a stream in the back with marsh, and there's also a bordering vegetated wetland on the side of the yard. This area has recently been cleared of vegetation, and fill was brought in to level the area. They did have erosion control installed, and I did meet on site with the property owner and the landscaper who completed the work at Joyce Landscaping last Friday. And so here's the area. There's still some intact skunk cabbage over here and the bottom, but most of this area was definitely wetland prior, and it has been removed of vegetation with some loam brought in. And the homeowner also did mention that they did remove 3 trees. I think he said a cherry or 2 cherries, and I'm not sure, but 3 trees were also included in the removal of vegetation. Here's a portion that directly abuts that pond and stream back there with some Phragmites. Here's erosion control, but there has been sediment that has crossed the erosion control already, so it does need to be reinstalled a little more securely. We have sediment going underneath and around it. And so my recommendation for this property would be to issue an enforcement order including certified ecological restoration practitioner for restoration of the pre-existing wetland area, including at least a 10-foot buffer, with a report with the general number and size of the trees that were removed and general previous existing conditions. I would recommend that since it's just the beginning of the spring, happy spring, that they can, if they're able to contract with a certified wetlands ecological restoration practitioner in time to attempt to remove the fill to restore the original grade and seed the whole area with a wetland seed mix as soon as possible. And then have a restoration plan submitted. And if possible, get some portion of those plants installed this growing season before June 1st, if all the stars align. I realize it's a very quick turnaround, but we can have a caveat in there if it's not able to be completed, that it be done in the fall, but definitely at least to be seeded. And then 3 years monitoring by a professional.
A SERP.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, do you by chance have an aerial photo of this?
Yeah. Here's the site, the pool. Here's the pond in the back, covered with Phragmites. And here's that wetland to the side that was cleared. And the stream, this is in September, so it's dried up, but the stream runs on the side. Let's see if we get a leaf off. Here's that wetland. I'm assuming these are the 2 trees that they had removed. This is the one that's remaining here. And here's that stone with the water on the side. And this is where the wet area was, where it's kind of darker. But it would need to be redelineated in the field to find that exact boundary.
Okay. Can you go all the way out just so I can see a little bit?
Yeah, we're in Yarmouth Port, although Salt Marsh.
That's Thatcher Shore Conservation Area just to the right where you're.
Yes, this is conservation area down here. And there was one small thing on conservation property. They dropped a big pile of wood chips that does have to be relocated.
Okay.
That's our last.
You are?
Sorry, I'm Andrew Novikis.
Okay, and do you understand what we're asking you to do?
Without a doubt.
Okay.
We've reached out to multiple mitigation consultants.
Okay.
Trying to find somebody who we can align with and work with as soon as possible. Willing to do whatever it takes to make it right, obviously.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And I don't see an issue. I'm sure if we can get everything in line, timeline-wise.
Yeah, I think the seating at least. Okay.
Back in by June 1, that shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, I would recommend as soon as possible to delineate, remove the fill to restore the original grade and seed, and then submit the restoration plan if possible by May 1st and go from there.
It's going to be tight.
It's going to be tight, yeah, but if we can even get it seeded.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can get it seated, you're ahead of the game at this point.
Yeah.
So, and you've got the SERP. The SERP will be doing all the work. Is that correct?
That would be up to the board.
I think that's what we should be aiming for.
Could you repeat that?
The SERP would be the one that would be the individuals that are actually doing the actual planting and restoration work.
And not just supervising. It would just might be difficult to get someone that quickly from that small
Well, I think they
list.
could certainly supervise as far as the planting or the seed mix goes, that sort of thing. I mean, I don't know if the SERP would be willing to just supervise as a supervisory capacity. That would be my only concern. If they are willing to have, and when I say supervising, I mean.
On-site.
Yes, and a dedicated individual on site while you're doing the work, then that would be, I guess, I could live with that, but if they can't, then I would want to see them doing the work, so. And then I would also put in as a stipulation that if the SERP changes, that they should notify the office ahead of time, or at least make notification to you. And as to who's taking their place.
Okay. And we would have a pre-construction meeting before anything goes on additional to what's already there.
Yeah, I can get somebody up, we can mitigate get rid of the wood chips, we can reattach and better attach the wattle, obviously as soon as possible, too.
Okay, great.
Okay, anybody else have any questions, comments? All right, do I have a motion to issue the enforcement order as written? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. All right, thank you. Just make sure you keep in touch with Brittany throughout the whole process,
I
okay?
have Joyce's email. Okay. Thank you.
The cell on there is probably the best one, too.
Great.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to other business, we have the approval of the meeting minutes for December 6th and March 6th.
I read March 6th, it seemed fine.
I did as well.
Good for you.
You said you disagree?
No, he said he.
I read it as well.
Ah, okay.
I disagree. This is
So is there a motion to approve the minutes for March 6th? I'm sorry, you made that motion, Brad.
I'll second.
You did the
Yeah.
second, right? Is there all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
You don't even need to abstain because you weren't around?
Oh, were you there on March 6th?
March 6th, let me
Is
see.
that when you went to Boston?
No.
No?
I'll bring up the notes.
Have it one, two, three, four. There's four of us
Yeah, you're good.
for that one. What about December 6th?
No, we're not good for December 6th still.
We're still not good for December 6th?
No, because that was the daytime meeting where you and Bradford were not here, so we just still have the three.
One, two,
I don't remember a daytime meeting. Was there?
It was on a Friday.
Oh, that's right, we had to move it because,
this is why I advised against doing that.
we had to move
Well,
it
once
because.
Jack's back.
Because we missed the deadline for,
Because there was an unfortunate administration error.
I said we, not you.
All right, so we'll just table that old December 6th, 2024 minutes to
Next time.
next time, whatever that is.
Except I won't be here next time, so we'll be able to vote.
Okay, so the time after that.
16th, I think it is.
April 17.
Oh, okay, April 17th for the,
And I was here for the 6th. My notes.
Nice.
all right. Announcement for Yarmouth Annual Community Cleanup Day, Saturday, April 12th, 2025. Sounds like I just made that. Okay, anything else for anybody?
Yeah, I was wondering if you had received any updates about the open meeting law.
I have not. It does.
The only thing I heard was that the House has passed it. They were passing, the Senate was actually supposed to, I heard, don't hold me to it, but I heard the Senate was voting today. And if they did, then assuming they do that favorably, they'll pass it on to the governor, and I think they're looking at another, I think it's another 2-year extension. I think it's sometime in 2027.
Once that's final, I'll let everybody know.
Okay.
I haven't, not yet. It's important.
That was coming up, so I was like, what's happening?
Okay, anybody else? If not, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. We stand adjourned at
Nobody
7:13.
ever opposes that.
7:13.